"I need to make my ex jealous," whispered the billionaire. To the obese girl, what she did next shocked everyone. A ruthless billionaire whispers a cruel plan, make his ex jealous, and picks the one woman no one expects, a proud plus-size baker fighting to keep her shop. She answers not with tears, but with a deal. Be my date, on her terms. The world watches as a fake public pair sparks real sparks. A rival developer moves to tear the neighborhood down, and an old family secret quietly surfaces. Everyone expects a show. What no one expects is who will pay the price. Will his empire survive the choice he's about to make? Or will love cost them everything? Drop a comment below and share which part of the world you're tuning in from today. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe for more. The morning light hadn't yet touched the windows of Hale and Hearth when Marissa unlocked the back door at 6:30 a.m. The familiar symphony began, the clatter of sheet pans, the whoosh of ovens firing up, and the soft whir of mixers coming to life. "Morning, boss," Tommy, her lead baker, called out while hauling a bag of flour over his shoulder. His backwards cap was already dusted white. "Someone's chipper for dawn patrol," Marissa teased, tying her apron. The scent of melting butter filled the air as she pulled yesterday's laminated dough from the cooler. Each fold had to be perfect. The secret to the flakiest croissants was patience and precision. The kitchen moved like a well-oiled machine. Jenny, their newest apprentice, carefully tempered chocolate for the day's ganache while Marco prepped fruit preserves. The morning playlist hummed softly beneath their focused work. "Jenny, ease up on whisking that chocolate." Marissa guided gently, noting the apprentice's tense shoulders. "Let it melt slowly. We want silk, not sauce." A bang from the corner made them all jump. The temperamental convection oven was acting up again, its temperature swinging wildly. Marissa grabbed her tools, crouching to access the control panel. "Come on, you beautiful monster," she muttered, adjusting wires with practiced hands. After a few minutes, the oven settled into its usual gentle hum. "You're like an oven whisperer." Tommy laughed. "That thing only behaves for you. If only it could whisper the winning lottery numbers." Marissa replied, wiping her hands. "Then maybe we could afford that second oven we desperately need." While the morning bake progressed, Marissa staged a quick photo for the bakery's Instagram. A just-glazed pain au chocolat catching the early light, scattered cocoa nibs adding texture to the shot. She typed, "Breakfast of champions and chocolate thieves, Hale and Hearth tang small batch joy." The post had barely gone live when her phone rang. "Hi, Mom," she answered, wedging the phone between ear and shoulder while finishing a pastry lattice. "Just checking in, sweetheart. How's the morning rush? Smooth sailing so far? Tommy only dropped one tray, a new record." "I heard that," Tommy called out, making Ellen laugh through the speaker. "Listen." Her mother's voice took on that worried edge Marissa knew too well. "About the lease renewal. Mom, I've got it covered," Marissa assured her, though her stomach tightened. The 2-year renewal was looming, and rumors of rent hikes had been circulating among the street's small business owners. "I know you do. I just worry. You've built something so special here." "And we're going to keep building it," Marissa said firmly. "In fact, wholesale orders are up. If we can expand the kitchen space—" "One dream at a time," Ellen said warmly. "Oh, did you see the article about Stone Hospitality's new project?" Before Marissa could answer, the shop bell chimed. Through the kitchen door's window, she caught sight of a sleek black SUV pulling away from the curb. "Got to go, Mum. Love you." The man who entered moved like he owned the place, designer casual wear that probably cost more than her monthly rent, sunglasses despite the moderate morning light. He approached the counter with measured steps, taking in every detail of her carefully curated space. "Good morning," Marissa greeted professionally. "What can I get you?" "Croissant," he said simply, removing his sunglasses. His eyes were sharp, calculating. "I've heard good things." As she wrapped his order, he leaned slightly forward. "Actually, I have an unusual request. My ex frequents this block. Mind if I stay a while? Make her a little jealous?" Marissa's eyebrows shot up. "Sorry, but I don't do relationship theater. Plenty of coffee shops around if you're looking for a stage." Instead of being offended, his mouth curved into a cool half-smile. He bent closer, voice dropping to a whisper. $5,000 for 2 hours of your time. Just conversation, nothing more. I need to be seen with someone genuine." "Genuine isn't for sale," Marissa replied, sliding his croissant across the counter. "Neither am I." He straightened, something flickering in his expression. Surprise? Amusement? Before he reached into his jacket. The business card he placed beside the pastry was heavy, cream-colored stock with embossed lettering. Gabriel Stone, CEO, Stone Hospitality Group. "I'm launching a new venture next month," he said, that calculated smile returning. "I'd like you there. Think about it." He turned and walked out, leaving the card behind as the lunch crowd began filtering in. Marissa stared at the elegant typography, the memory of his whispered offer lingering like smoke in the air. "Boss?" Tommy called from the kitchen. "Need you back here. The ganache is acting up." Marissa tucked the card under the register, pushing thoughts of Gabriel Stone aside. She had a business to run, one built on her own terms. No amount of designer suits or smooth proposals would change that. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, catching on display cases of carefully crafted pastries. Another day at Hale and Hearth continued, the rhythm of whisks and ovens a familiar comfort against the unexpected intrusion of Gabriel Stone's world. "So let me get this straight," Tommy said during their hastily called staff meeting. "Gabriel Stone, the hotel guy, tried to hire you as a fake date." Marissa leaned against the prep table, surrounded by her small but loyal team. "More like an image prop. Apparently being genuine is worth $5,000 these days." "That's insane." Sophie, their front counter manager, shook her head. "Though I guess that's pocket change for him." "You know what?" Marissa grabbed her phone, a mischievous glint in her eye. "Let's have some fun with this." She snapped a photo of their signature croissants, arranged in a heart shape, adding text. "Sorry, Mr. Stone, but authenticity isn't for sale, though our croissants are no fake dating required." Small business reality. Within an hour, the post exploded. Local food bloggers shared it, adding their own commentary about corporate tactics versus small business integrity. The lunch rush doubled, with customers specifically mentioning the post. "Is it true?" a young woman asked, phone in hand. "Did Gabriel Stone really try to hire you?" "I'm just here to make great pastries." Marissa deflected diplomatically, though she couldn't help smiling. By early afternoon, her inbox was flooded. Food writers, local news outlets, and even a morning show producer wanted comments. But one email stood out, from Assistant to Gabriel Stone, CEO. The message was crisp, professional. "Mr. Stone would like to discuss a potential partnership opportunity. Would 4 p.m. today suit your schedule?" Marissa's fingers hovered over the keyboard. This was her chance to leverage the situation. She replied with clear terms. She'd consider a pop-up at his hotel launch, but wanted guaranteed media rights and an operating grant to protect her business interests. The response came within minutes. Terms acceptable for preliminary discussion. 4 p.m. Stone Hospitality Group, 35th floor. The Stone Hospitality building dominated the skyline, all glass and steel. At 3:55 p.m., Marissa stepped into a conference room that probably cost more than her annual revenue. Gabriel Stone was already there, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, studying documents. "Ms. Hale," he said, not looking up, "your social media post was creative. Your proposal was presumptuous." She countered, taking a seat, "But we're both here because we see potential value." Now he did look up, that calculating gaze fixed on her. "Explain your terms." 3 public appearances, including your hotel launch, a 2-month pop-up location inside the venue, and—" She met his stare. "Capital for new equipment that stays mine, regardless of outcome. That's ambitious for someone who rejected a simple $5,000 offer this morning." "That was personal. This is business." Marissa pulled out her own market research. "You're new. Hotel needs authentic local appeal. I bring that, plus an engaged social media following and press connections who actually trust me." Gabriel leaned back, studying her with newfound interest. "You've done your homework?" "I run a successful business, Mr. Stone. Small doesn't mean amateur." He grabbed a napkin from the coffee service, pulling out an expensive pen. "Let's outline the basics." For the next hour, they negotiated. Gabriel was precise, each word measured for maximum impact. Marissa matched him with direct honesty and clear boundaries. The napkin filled with terms, appearance schedules, profit shares, equipment specifications. "One more thing," Marissa said as they finished. "I maintain complete creative control over my brand and products. Within reason. No, complete control. I'm not becoming a corporate puppet." Something flickered in his expression. Respect, maybe, or challenge. "Agreed. Have your lawyer review the formal contract tomorrow." The sun was setting when Marissa finally returned to Hale and Hearth. Her mother was waiting, worry evident in her expression. "I saw the post," Ellen said, "and Sophie told me about the meeting. Are you sure about this?" Marissa showed her the napkin contract. "It's a calculated risk, Mom. We need that equipment, and this gives us exposure without selling out. Gabriel Stone has a reputation for being ruthless in business." "So do I." Marissa smiled. "Just ask our suppliers. I'm going into this with eyes wide open." Ellen hugged her daughter. "You've always been smarter than me about these things." "I learned from the best," Marissa said, returning the embrace. "Besides, I'm not giving up anything we've built, just adding new ingredients to the mix." They stood in the quiet bakery, the day's events settling around them like flour dust. Through the window, the stone hospitality building gleamed in the distance, a reminder of the 2 worlds about to collide. Tommy stuck his head out from the kitchen. "Boss, should I start prepping tomorrow's dough, or are we too fancy for that now?" "Get to work," Marissa laughed, rolling up her sleeves. "Success tomorrow starts with good prep today." The familiar rhythm of evening prep began. Mixing dough, cleaning stations, planning tomorrow's specials. But now there was an undercurrent of anticipation, of change on the horizon. Marissa had built her business on authenticity and skill. Now she'd have to prove those values could survive in Gabriel Stone's world of power plays and calculated moves. Marissa woke to sunlight streaming through her apartment windows, her mind already racing with contract terms and business implications. She'd barely slept, reviewing every angle of yesterday's whirlwind negotiations. By 8, she couldn't wait any longer, and called Lena, her friend from law school who'd chosen corporate law while Marissa pursued pastry. "You're telling me Gabriel Stone walked into your bakery?" Lena's voice crackled through the speaker. "The same Gabriel Stone who just bought that historic hotel block?" "The very same. I need your eyes on this deal before I send my counter-proposal." "Send me what you have." Marissa pulled up her draft while padding to the kitchen. "I'm focusing on image rights and creative control. He can't use me as a prop in his corporate theater." "Smart." Lena's keyboard clicked in the background. His legal team is notorious for burying loopholes in the fine print. We need ironclad language on approved images and usage rights. For the next hour, they dissected every clause. Lena outlined litigation risks, suggested specific language about image exploitation, and helped craft terms for revenue sharing from the pop-up location. Add a moral clause, Lena advised. Mutual protection against misrepresentation, and be explicit about what constitutes staging. No manufactured drama, no scripted encounters. By 10, Marissa had a polished counter-proposal. She attached it to an email, her cursor hovering over send for just a moment before clicking. The response came faster than expected. Not from his assistant this time, but from Gabriel himself. Impressive legal framework. Let's discuss in person. My private lounge, 3 p.m. The view might help put things in perspective. Marissa arrived at exactly 3, escorted by security to the top floor. The lounge was all floor-to-ceiling windows and leather furnishings. The city spread out below like a living map. Gabriel stood at the window, jacket off, tie loosened. Your counter-proposal shows experience with contract law. I had help, Marissa admitted, joining him at the window. Those permit delays you mentioned yesterday? They taught me to get everything in writing. He turned, studying her. About those permits, I made some calls. The delay isn't administrative. Someone's deliberately holding them up. Why would anyone— Olivia. His jaw tightened. My ex-wife sits on the Historical Preservation Board. She's been difficult since the divorce. Understanding dawned. That's why you want these public appearances. You're using me to unsettle her before some announcement. The Stone Foundation's annual charity gala. She usually dominates the press coverage. He moved to a sleek desk, pulling out papers. Your social media presence, combined with a few strategic appearances. I won't be a pawn in your revenge game. Not revenge, strategy. You need that permit and new equipment. I need to redirect media attention. We can help each other. Marissa crossed her arms. The whispered line at my counter, that was a test. I apologize for that. His tone softened slightly. It was impulsive, manipulative. She corrected. Yes. He didn't deny it. But this contract protects both of us. Your brand remains independent. My foundation gets positive press. Everyone wins. They spent the next hour reviewing terms. Gabriel accepted her image restrictions without argument, even strengthened the language around mutual respect and intentions. At 4:30, they both reached for the pen. His hand brushed hers, warm, unexpectedly calloused. Their eyes met. I am sorry about yesterday, he said quietly. The whisper was beneath us both. Apology accepted. Marissa kept her tone professional. But let's keep this strictly business. They signed 3 public appearances, equipment funding, pop-up revenue sharing, and ironclad protections against exploitation. Simple, clear, mutual benefit. Walking home in the gathering twilight, Marissa replayed every moment. The brush of his hand, the intensity of his focus when reviewing terms, the glimpse of genuine regret when apologizing. The contract felt solid. The strategy made sense. But something about Gabriel Stone's careful control, the calculated nature of every move, made her wonder exactly what she'd agreed to. Tommy was closing up the bakery when she passed. Boss, how'd the fancy meeting go? We signed. She helped him pull down the security gate. Delivery of the new oven starts next week. And the whole date thing with Mr. Moneybags? Strictly professional. Marissa checked the locks. 3 appearances, carefully managed, nothing more. If you say so. Tommy grinned. But that guy doesn't strike me as the strictly professional type. Then it's a good thing we have everything in writing. They finished closing together. the familiar routine grounding her after a day of high-stakes negotiation. Tomorrow would bring permit approvals, equipment deliveries, and the first steps of whatever game Gabriel Stone was playing. But tonight, she had dough to prep and recipes to test. The business of living didn't stop for billionaire schemes. Her phone buzzed, a message from Gabriel's assistant with the final contract PDF and a calendar invitation for their first appearance. Dinner at Oriole, the city's most exclusive restaurant. Just business, she reminded herself, tucking the phone away. She had a bakery to run, a reputation to protect, and now a contract to fulfill. The city lights winked on one by one as she walked the final blocks home. Somewhere up there, Gabriel Stone was probably already planning his next move. But Marissa had played her own hand well today. Whatever came next, she'd face it on her terms. 3 days felt like 3 minutes. Marissa found herself in a pristine fitting room at Bergdorf's, surrounded by racks of designer gowns that probably cost more than her monthly revenue. Mr. Stone insists on Valentino, the stylist Marcus said while scrolling through his tablet. But let's find something that speaks to you. I won't be squeezed into anything uncomfortable, Marissa stated firmly. I spend 12 hours a day on my feet. Marcus's eyes sparkled. Darling, discomfort is for amateurs. Here. He pulled out a deep burgundy gown with architectural details. Bold like your pastries, elegant like your brand. The dress fit perfectly, flowing fabric that moved like water, strong, shoulders that made her feel powerful. When Marissa turned in the mirror, she saw herself, a businesswoman who happened to be wearing couture. This one, she decided. Back at the bakery by 1 p.m., Gina was experimenting with miniature versions of their signature pastries. These are for the VIPs? Marissa sampled a bite-sized pain au chocolat. Perfect ratio. Nervous about tonight? Gina piped delicate rosettes onto tiny eclairs. Terrified, Marissa admitted. I've never been photographed by professionals. Just pretend you're doing an Instagram story, Gina suggested. You're great at those. The afternoon raced by. At 5 p.m., a glam team arrived at Marissa's apartment above the bakery. By 5:45, her dark hair was swept into an elegant updo, makeup enhancing rather than masking. The burgundy gown made her feel armored. When Gabriel's car arrived at 5:55 p.m., she was ready. He stepped out, immaculate in a black tuxedo. For a moment, his carefully controlled expression slipped into genuine appreciation. You look... He paused. Perfect for tonight. That's the idea, isn't it? Marissa took his offered arm. Let's give them something to talk about. The hotel ballroom was a crystal cathedral of wealth. Chandeliers dripped light onto white-clothed tables. Waiters circulated with champagne and caviar canapes. The air smelled of money, expensive perfume, aged whiskey, power. It was a world away from her bakery's warm scents of butter and sugar, the comfortable dust of flour on surfaces, the honest gleam of well-used ovens. But Marissa refused to feel small. Gabriel Stone, a reporter materialized with a photographer. Who's your stunning date? Marissa Hale, she answered before Gabriel could speak. Of Hale and Hearth Bakery. Flash, click. The photographer captured them. Gabriel's possessive hand at her waist, her confident smile. The artisan baker? The reporter's eyebrows rose. Quite a departure from your usual circle, Mr. Stone. Quality recognizes quality, Gabriel said smoothly. Marissa's creations are transforming the city's culinary landscape. More photos, more questions. Marissa felt the room's attention shift as they made their entrance. In the corner, a striking blonde in silver sequins watched with narrowed eyes. Olivia. Incoming, Marissa murmured to Gabriel. Your ex looks ready to pounce. Let her. His hand tightened slightly on her waist. You're doing beautifully. Olivia sashayed over, champagne in hand. Gabrielle, darling, slumming it with the help? Actually, Marissa interjected, I'm here representing small business interests in the community. Your preservation board's work affects many local entrepreneurs. Olivia's perfect smile froze. Before she could respond, another photographer approached. Mr. Stone, Ms. Hale, one more for social. They posed naturally, Gabriel's arm around her waist, Marissa's hand resting lightly on his chest. The flash caught them looking at each other, and moment of genuine amusement shared between them. That photo would be everywhere within hours. The evening proceeded like a carefully choreographed dance. Marissa charmed investors with stories of early morning baking. Gabriel kept her close, touching her elbow to guide her through conversations, his hand returning to her waist possessively whenever Olivia circled near. By 11:30 p.m., social media was ablaze. Stone's sweet new romance? Blazed one headline over their photo. Billionaire falls for baker, declared another. The car dropped her at the bakery just before midnight. A few night owls were still at the cafe tables outside. Hey, boss, called regular Joe, holding up his phone. You're trending. Just business, Marissa said, but smiled at their enthusiasm. She was unlocking the door when her phone buzzed. A text from her landlord. Saw you in the news. FYI, property developers meeting next week about the block. Might affect lease renewals. Call me. Marissa looked up at her beloved storefront, the warm golden lights still glowing inside. The night's glamour faded as reality settled back in. Her phone buzzed again. Gabriel, you were magnificent tonight. Thank you. She stared at the message, thinking of crystal chandeliers and camera flashes, of Olivia's cutting remarks and Gabriel's protective presence, of the power games being played above her head while she just tried to keep her dream alive. The bakery's familiar scents welcomed her home, yeast and sugar, butter and hope. Tomorrow she'd face whatever came next. Tonight she'd savor the memory of making Olivia Stone speechless, of feeling beautiful and strong in a room full of power players. Just business, she reminded herself. But as she climbed the stairs to her apartment, the weight of Gabriel's hand still lingered at her waist. Marissa's phone buzzed incessantly Thursday morning. The bakery's Instagram notifications exploded with activity, not all of it kind. Gold digger, read one comment from Society Secrets, using Gabriel Stone for clout. What's a nobody baker doing at the Stone Gala? Another sneered. Marissa set her phone face down on the counter, focusing instead on the morning's croissant lamination. The therapeutic rhythm of folding butter into dough usually calmed her, but today her hands trembled slightly. I've got this. Maddie grabbed Marissa's phone, her fingers flying across the screen. These trust fund brats need a reality check. Maddie, don't. Too late. Maddie grinned. Already reminded Harvard Society Secrets that successful women support each other, not tear them down. Added a few choice hashtags, too. The morning rush kept them busy enough to ignore the social media storm. Regular customers offered congratulations, though a few society wives gave Marissa pointed looks over their lattes. At noon, Marissa slipped out to attend the monthly community business meeting at the local coffee shop. Her heart stopped when she saw the agenda. Stone Global Development Proposals, Block 7 discussion. Sources say they're planning a boutique hotel. Carlos from the bookstore whispered. Buying up the whole block. Her block, her bakery. The meeting dissolved into worried murmurs. Property values, displacement, gentrification, words that made Marissa's stomach churn. She thought of Gabriel's hand on her waist last night, his protective presence. Had it all been a calculated move? Back at the bakery, she buried herself in work. Ganache needed tempering, orders needed filling. Life went on, even when your world tilted sideways. At 3 p.m. sharp, her phone lit up with Gabriel's name. "Last night was perfect," he said, his voice warm. "The photos are exactly what we needed. There's a charity brunch next weekend. Are you buying my block?" Marissa interrupted. Silence stretched between them. When Gabriel spoke again, his tone had shifted to careful neutrality. "Property acquisitions are complex matters involving multiple parties and confidentiality agreements. I can't discuss—" "Don't lawyer me, Gabriel. Yes or no?" "Marissa." His voice softened. "Business decisions and our arrangement are separate matters." "Are they?" She gripped the phone tighter. "Because it seems awfully convenient to have the local baker playing nice in public while you plan to demolish her livelihood." "Nothing is decided." More corporate caution. "Various properties are under consideration for future development." "Various properties containing people's dreams, their lives." Marissa's voice shook. I thought you were different." She hung up before he could respond. The next day dragged. Marissa threw herself into prep work, grateful for the mindless tasks. Maddie handled the front counter, fielding more questions about Baker Cinderella and Stone's new flame. At 2 p.m., Gabriel was scheduled to visit for a promotional photo shoot, part of their contract. Marissa waited in her office, arms crossed, as his familiar footsteps approached. He filled the doorway in another impeccable suit, looking uncertain for the first time since she'd met him. "Before you say anything," he started. "No." Marissa stood. "You listen. This neighborhood isn't just real estate. It's people, stories, dreams. My bakery feeds families, hosts celebrations, gives people their first jobs. Carlos's bookstore has story time for kids. Maria's flower shop made my mother's wedding bouquet 25 years ago." She stepped closer. "If you're buying this block, fine. Business is business. But these people deserve protection. Real protection, not corporate promises that vanish when the ink dries." Gabriel studied her face. "What are you asking for?" "A clause in any development contract. Guaranteed lease renewal options for existing businesses at controlled rates. First right of refusal on retail space in any new building. Community input on development plans." "That's unprecedented." "So is dating a baker to make your ex jealous." Marissa held his gaze. "You want me to keep playing my part? Show me you're not the cold corporate titan everyone thinks you are." Something shifted in Gabriel's expression. Respect, maybe. Or admiration. "I'll look into the block's development plans," he said finally. "And the feasibility of protection clauses for existing tenants." "Promise." "Yes." He reached for her hand, then seemed to think better of it. "I promise." Marissa nodded, stepping back. "The photographer's waiting. Shall we?" They moved to the front of the bakery, where warm afternoon light streamed through the windows. As the photographer positioned them, Marissa noticed Gabriel's thumb scratching his palm, that tiny tell of discomfort she'd noticed before. "Closer together," the photographer called. Gabriel's hand settled at her waist, familiar now. Marissa smiled for the camera, wondering if he could feel her heart racing through all those layers of professionalism and pretense. "Perfect," the photographer said. "Now one behind the counter." They moved through the poses like professionals, Baker and Billionaire playing their parts. But something had shifted between them. Trust cracked, then cautiously rebuilt on new terms. When Gabriel left, he paused at the door. "I meant what I said. I'll look into it." Marissa watched him go, then turned back to her kitchen. There were pastries to bake, customers to serve, a business to run. Whatever came next, she'd face it with flour-dusted hands and her head held high. The afternoon sun warmed her workspace as she rolled out dough for tomorrow's croissants. Outside, life on the block continued. Carlos arranging books in his window, Maria watering her sidewalk planters, regulars chatting at cafe tables. Her phone buzzed with another press request about Stone's baker, but Marissa ignored it. She had more important things to focus on than headlines, like protecting her community, running her business, and figuring out if Gabriel Stone was truly an ally or just another businessman in a designer suit. Sunday morning's peace shattered with a notification ping. Marissa glanced at her phone while prepping for a private tasting, then froze. The business news headline blazed across her screen. Ruiz Development launches hostile bid for Stone Global property. Her fingers trembled as she scrolled through the article. Damian Ruiz, a notorious corporate raider, had launched an aggressive takeover attempt of one of Stone Global's prime downtown properties. The story painted Gabriel's company as vulnerable, citing unstable acquisition plans and questionable PR strategies. At the counter, Maddie whistled low. "Your boyfriend's in trouble." "He's not my boyfriend." Marissa wiped her hands on her apron. "It's business." But her stomach churned. The article mentioned community development plans under review, exactly where her bakery stood. The morning crawled by as more news trickled in. Stone Global's stock price wobbled. Social media buzzed with speculation about Gabriel's leadership. By 1 o'clock, paparazzi had gathered outside Stone Global's headquarters. Through the bakery's front windows, Marissa watched reporters chase board members into the building. Gabriel arrived last, his usual composed stride now clipped and tense. "They're saying Ruiz might win," Maddie murmured, scrolling through updates. "That he could force Stone Global to sell off properties." "It's not our problem," Marissa said firmly, but her phone felt heavy in her pocket. She hadn't heard from Gabriel since their photo shoot. At 3:30, her landlord called. "Need to move up our lease renewal meeting. Today at 4, if possible." Marissa's heart skipped. "That's sudden." "Market's moving fast. See you at 4. She spent the next 20 minutes changing out of her flour-dusted clothes and reviewing her financial documents. The meeting room felt smaller than she remembered, her landlord's smile a touch too practiced. "Marissa, you've been a wonderful tenant," he began, shuffling papers. "But I should mention we've had some interesting offers." Her throat tightened. "Offers?" "Preliminary discussions, nothing concrete." He wouldn't meet her eyes. "But given the current climate, we might need to adjust terms. Significantly. The lease agreement is subject to market conditions." He slid a document across the table. "These would be the new terms. Take some time to review them." Marissa stared at the numbers. Her rent would nearly double. "This isn't sustainable for small businesses. The market determines sustainability." He gathered his papers. "We'll need your decision by Friday." She left the meeting in a daze, barely noticing the afternoon crowds. Back at the bakery, she found 3 missed calls from her mother, and a city notice that had arrived earlier in the week. Her permit application for the new oven was under extended review. At 7:30, her phone buzzed. Gabriel's message was brief. "Dealing with sensitive company matters. Need to step back from planned appearances. Please maintain our agreement's confidentiality. Apologies for any inconvenience." Marissa sat heavily in her office chair, surrounded by the day's chaos. The permit delay notice, the new lease terms, Gabriel's retreat. Everything she'd built suddenly felt fragile. Through the kitchen window, she could see her staff cleaning up, laughing together as they wiped down counters and stored ingredients. The evening's last customers lingered over coffee and pastries, their conversations a gentle murmur. Her phone buzzed again. More press requests about her connection to Gabriel. The Baker Cinderella story had grown legs, spawning think pieces about class dynamics and corporate romance. Now it felt like a trap. She pulled up the permit application, noting all the careful plans she'd made. The equipment deposits, the scheduling adjustments, the marketing strategy. Everything had hinged on perfect timing, timing that was now unraveling. Maddie knocked, softly. "You okay, boss?" "Just processing." Marissa managed a smile. "How are the chocolate orders for tomorrow?" "All prepped, but I saw the news about Stone Global." Maddie hesitated. "People are talking. About the neighborhood, I mean. Carlos said his landlord's being weird, too." The block felt different now, charged with uncertainty. Every storefront represented someone's dream, balanced on the edge of change. Maria's flowers, Carlos's books, her own ovens and mixing bowls. She thought of Gabriel's promise to investigate protection clauses. Had that been real, or just another corporate tactic? The memory of his hand at her waist, his quiet, "I promise," felt distant now. Her mother called again. "I saw the news," Ellen said without preamble. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine, Mom." Marissa watched the last customers leave, the street growing quiet. "It's just business, remember? You've worked so hard for this place." "I know." She touched the permit notice. "I'll figure something out." After hanging up, Marissa walked through her darkened bakery. The ovens cooled, ticking softly. Tomorrow's dough rested in the refrigerator. Order forms waited to be filled. Life would go on, whatever happened with Gabriel Stone and his corporate wars. But as she gathered her things to leave, the weight of uncertainty pressed in. Her lease, the permit, the equipment deposits she'd already paid, the staff who depended on her, everything she'd built could slip away in the space between corporate decisions. The city notice sat accusingly on her desk. Extended review period required. The bureaucratic language couldn't hide the truth. She was more vulnerable than she'd realized, caught in currents far bigger than a baker's dreams. Wednesday morning arrived with a chill that matched Marissa's mood. At 10 sharp, she entered Stone Global's gleaming headquarters, her heels clicking against marble floors. The charity planning meeting waited on the 40th floor, another world of glass and steel where every surface reflected wealth. Gabriel sat at the head of the conference table, his expression carved from granite. Only a slight tightening around his eyes betrayed he'd noticed her arrival. "Ms. Hale," he said formally, "please join us." The meeting dragged through presentations about donor statistics and social media metrics. Marissa felt the weight of sidelong glances, other board members clearly wondering about her presence, about the rumors swirling through business circles. At 11:30, during a coffee break, Gabriel found her by the window overlooking the city. "The view's different up here," she remarked, keeping her voice neutral. "Sometimes too different." Something in his tone made her turn. He was studying his coffee cup, shoulders slightly hunched, a crack in his usual perfect posture. "My mother used to say that." "Your mother?" She hated heights. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "When I was 8, she'd take me to the observation deck of our first hotel, not to see the view, to remind me what the street looked like from above. She said powerful men forget what the ground feels like." The vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. "Did she work in the business?" "Until she left." His jaw tightened. "Family empires have their costs." Marissa thought of her own mother, fierce in her quiet way. "When the bakery first opened, we almost lost everything to a bad loan. Mom stood up to the bank manager, this tiny woman facing down suits and spreadsheets. She told them good business means protecting good people." Gabriel's expression softened. "Sounds like she won." "She did. That's how I learned to fight smart, not just hard." Their eyes met, understanding passing between them. For a moment he wasn't the corporate titan, and she wasn't the defiant baker, just two people carrying their mother's lessons. At 1 o'clock, the meeting reconvened. Marissa saw her opening when discussion turned to community relations. "The hotel development needs a human face," she said, standing. "Not just PR statements, real connection with the neighborhood." She outlined her vision, a street festival celebrating local businesses, with the hotel project positioned as a partner rather than an invader. Stone Global could showcase its commitment to preserving community character. She continued, meeting Gabriel's gaze, while demonstrating how development can lift everyone. The board members exchanged glances. Gabriel leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. The optics would be advantageous. More than optics. Marissa pressed. Real engagement, real trust building. After tense discussion, Gabriel nodded. "Draft a proposal. We'll need cost projections and security considerations." The meeting wrapped at 3. Marissa gathered her notes, hyper-aware of Gabriel's presence across the room. As others filed out, he approached her chair. "Walk with me." They moved through empty corridors, their footsteps echoing. At 3:15, they reached a quiet stretch overlooking the atrium below. "That was clever," he said softly. "Using the meeting to advance your agenda. Is that what you think I'm doing? Isn't it?" He turned to face her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. "Playing the game?" "Not everything is a game, Gabriel." His eyes darkened at her use of his first name. "No," he murmured. "Some things are far more dangerous." The air between them crackled with tension. He leaned closer, one hand coming up to brush her cheek. For a heartbeat, Marissa let herself imagine closing that distance. Instead, she stepped back. The contract was clear about boundaries. Contracts can be renegotiated, not without explicit consent. She met his gaze steadily, and not in empty corridors. Something like respect flickered across his face. He nodded once, resuming his professional mask. "Of course. My apologies." Marissa turned away, her heart pounding. She could feel his eyes on her as she walked to the elevator, her steps measured and calm, despite the trembling in her hands. The numbers counted down, 40, 39, 38, each floor taking her further from that charged moment. She thought of his mother on hotel rooftops, teaching him about power and perspective. Of her own mother facing down bankers with nothing but conviction. Different lessons, different worlds. Yet something had shifted between them, some understanding deeper than contracts or business deals. Whether that made things easier or infinitely more complicated remained to be seen. The elevator reached the lobby. Marissa straightened her shoulders, checked her reflection in the polished doors. She had meetings to schedule, a festival to plan, a bakery to run. No time for dangerous maybes or almost kisses in corporate corridors. Still, as she pushed through the revolving doors into the afternoon sun, she couldn't quite forget the look in Gabriel's eyes when he'd spoken of his mother. The crack in his armor that suggested the man behind the empire might be more complicated than she'd imagined. Her phone buzzed, a message from Ellen asking how the meeting went. Marissa smiled, thinking of their shared stories of maternal strength. She'd tell her mother about the festival plan, about standing her ground in that boardroom. But the almost kiss, the way Gabriel's mask had slipped, that she'd keep to herself. The city hummed around her, unchanged by the morning's revelations. Delivery trucks rumbled past. A construction crew worked on a nearby building. Life went on, grounded and real, while high above, glass towers reflected clouds and possibilities. The morning sun hadn't yet touched the bakery windows when Marissa found the envelope. It sat innocently among bills and flyers, its paper yellowed with age, marked private, to be delivered upon request to Ellen Hale. Her grandmother's neat handwriting brought an unexpected ache. Martha Hale had passed 2 years ago, but seeing her precise script made the loss fresh again. Inside, Marissa found 2 items, a promissory note dated 25 years ago and a letter written in her grandmother's hand. The note bore an elegant letterhead, Stone Family Holdings. Her eyes caught on the amount, $50,000, and Catherine Stone's flowing signature. The letter trembled in her hands as she read, "My dearest Ellen, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and it's time you knew the full truth. When the bakery nearly failed in '98, I didn't win over those bankers alone. Catherine Stone, yes, that Catherine Stone, offered private help. She'd tasted our bread at a charity function and believed in what we were building. The loan saved everything, but pride made me keep it quiet. Catherine understood. She arranged it through a shell company to protect everyone's dignity." Marissa sank into her office chair, pieces clicking into place. The Stones' unexpected interest in her small bakery. Gabrielle's careful attention to her lease situation. Throughout the day, the knowledge sat heavy in her chest. She worked mechanically, proofing dough, filling orders, managing staff, while her mind churned. By closing time, determination had crystallized into action. At 8 o'clock, she stood in her mother's kitchen, the documents spread across the familiar wooden table. "Why didn't you tell me?" Her voice was quiet, but Ellen flinched as if she'd shouted. "Oh, sweetheart!" Ellen's hands twisted her dish towel. "Your grandmother swore me to secrecy. She was so proud, so afraid of appearing weak. Mom, this isn't about pride anymore. The Stones are trying to buy our block. Gabriel Stone is—" She gestured helplessly. "We had a right to know this history." Ellen sank into a chair, her shoulders slumping. "Your grandmother handled everything. I only knew we were saved, that some angel investor believed in us. When Catherine Stone passed away a few years later, the debt transferred to regular bank payments. I thought it was finished. But it wasn't just business, was it?" Marissa pressed. "This note, these letters, Catherine Stone chose to help personally. She was different from what you'd expect." Ellen's eyes grew distant. "Elegant, yes, but kind. She came to the bakery sometimes, early mornings when no one would notice. She'd talk about her son, how she hoped he'd learn there's more to legacy than just money." Marissa thought of Gabriel in the conference corridor, that glimpse of vulnerability when he'd spoken of his mother. Did he know? Does he know now? "I don't know, honey. Those worlds don't mix easily. But Catherine, she believed they should." The revelation shifted everything sideways. Gabriel wasn't just the corporate raider threatening her block. He was the son of a woman who'd once saved her family's dream, who'd understood the value of a neighborhood bakery. Back home, Marissa lay awake until dawn, composing and recomposing an email. At exactly 9 the next morning, she sent it. "Dear Mr. Stone, I've discovered documentation of a personal loan from Catherine Stone to my family's bakery in 1998. Given our current professional arrangement and your company's interest in the block, I believe we need to discuss this history openly. Regards, Marissa Hale." The hours crawled by. She kept checking her phone, jumping at every notification. Finally, at 4:17 p.m., his response arrived. "Marissa, I was aware of an entry in my mother's private accounts regarding Hale and Hearth, but not the personal nature of the arrangement. I'm having our archives searched for complete documentation. My mother's decisions were her own, but they deserve respect. I'll ensure any development plans take this history into account. We should meet to discuss this properly. Gabriel." The formal tone couldn't hide what felt like genuine surprise. Marissa remembered his mother's words in the letter about wanting him to understand true legacy. Had Catherine Stone's lesson been lost in the years of corporate mergers and power plays? She thought of her own mother's tears, the weight of a secret kept for so many years. The strange threads connecting their families through time, bread and money, pride and kindness, debts both financial and emotional. In her office, the afternoon light caught the old promissory note. Catherine Stone's signature seemed to shimmer, a ghost of grace reaching across decades. Marissa touched it gently, wondering what that elegant woman would think of her son and her investment now. Her phone buzzed again, Gabriel requesting a meeting for tomorrow. She stared at the message, feeling the weight of two families' histories. The truth hadn't simplified anything. Instead, it had added layers of complexity to every interaction, every negotiation. Across the street, she could see the building that housed her dream, the bakery her grandmother had fought to save, that her mother had protected with silence, that Catherine Stone had quietly preserved. Now its future lay tangled between her and Gabriel, heirs to a connection neither had known existed. She looked down at the neat stack of documents, proof that sometimes help came in unexpected forms, that dignity and commerce could coexist, that mothers passed down more than just recipes and regrets. The anger she'd felt earlier had softened into something more nuanced, understanding tinged with determination. Tomorrow she would face Gabriel Stone as neither enemy nor ally, but as someone bound by a shared past neither of them had chosen. For now, she carefully folded the papers away, preserving this piece of history that had changed everything and nothing at all. The image hit social media like a tsunami at noon on Saturday. Marissa stared at her phone, watching the carefully crafted narrative unravel. The photo showed Gabe and Olivia in an intimate embrace, their body language suggesting conspiracy rather than romance. Below it, someone had attached what appeared to be an internal Stone global memo discussing leveraging charity events for maximum displacement impact. "This can't be real," Maddie said, peering over Marissa's shoulder at the bakery counter. "The timing's too perfect." Marissa's social media notifications exploded. Comments flooded in, ranging from disappointed to vicious. "Guess she's just another corporate puppet." "Selling out the neighborhood for a rich boyfriend." "Knew that wholesome act was fake." The worst part wasn't the anger. It was the betrayal in her regular customers' responses. People who'd watched her build this place from nothing now questioned every intention. Her phone buzzed with a text from Gabe. "Don't respond. PR team handling it." But sitting silent felt like admitting guilt. At 3 o'clock, she gathered her staff in the back kitchen. Flour dusted the air as they huddled around the prep table, faces worried under their caps. "They're trying to make us look like pawns," Marissa said, gripping the edge of the stainless steel counter. "But we're not powerless. We have something they don't, real connections with real people. The regulars are already defending us online," Gina pointed out, showing her phone where loyal customers had started posting memories of birthday cakes and wedding tastings. "That's exactly what we need," Marissa said. "Not corporate spin, community truth." They mapped out a plan on butcher paper, an emergency community bake sale, featuring collaboration with other small businesses on the block. Each item would tell a story. Mrs. Chen's favorite almond cookies, made with ingredients from her corner store, bread using coffee from Miguel's cafe. While her team sprang into action, sending messages and coordinating logistics, Marissa's thoughts drifted to Gabe. The leaked photo bothered her less than his instinct to manage, rather than confront the situation. Across town in Stone Global's executive suite, Gabe faced his own crisis. The boardroom felt like a tomb at 6 p.m., all polish and deadly silence as he confronted Ethan. "The metadata on that photo shows it was accessed through our secure server," Gabe said, his voice dangerously quiet. Only 5 people have that clearance. Ethan leaned back, perfectly composed in his tailored suit. Are you accusing me of something, Gabriel? That picture was staged. Olivia and I never... He caught himself, restraining the anger. Someone edited that image and fabricated that memo. Someone with access and motive. Perhaps you should focus less on conspiracy theories and more on damage control. Ethan's smile didn't reach his eyes. The board is concerned about your personal entanglements affecting company strategy. The threat hung in the air between them. Gabe thought of his mother's legacy, of the connection to Marissa's family he was still processing, of how much more was at stake than just property values. Back at the bakery, night had fallen. Marissa sat cross-legged on her office floor, surrounded by receipt books and customer photos. Her Instagram live video was set up, waiting. No makeup, no filter, just the reality of a small business owner at the end of an exhausting day. She hit record. Hi everyone, no fancy editing tonight. I want to talk about what this place really means. She picked up an old photo. This is Maria. She orders her son's birthday cake every year, always chocolate, always with extra sprinkles. She was our first customer when we opened. She showed more photos, told more stories. The couple who got engaged over morning coffee. The study groups that claimed their corner table through finals week. The elderly gentleman who came in every Sunday for a single perfect croissant and conversation. This isn't about real estate or corporate deals. She continued, her voice steady. It's about the threads that weave a neighborhood together. Whatever you've seen today, know this. I will always fight for this community. Because it's not just my bakery, it's our home. Comments poured in, the tone shifting from anger to support. People shared their own Hale and Hearth memories, creating a digital tapestry of neighborhood life. As midnight approached, Marissa's phone lit up with a message from Gabe. Just watched your video. We need to talk. Not about PR or contracts, about what matters. She started to reply, then stopped. Tomorrow would bring more battles, more complexity. For tonight, she saved another supportive comment from a long-time customer. Never doubted you for a minute, honey. Your mama raised you right. The truth would come out eventually, about the photo, about Damien's manipulation, about old debts and new betrayals. But tonight, surrounded by proof of a decade's worth of community bonds, Marissa felt strangely peaceful. They could attack her reputation, but they couldn't fake the kind of loyalty built one cup of coffee, one morning chat, one perfectly flaky croissant at a time. She looked at the contract framed on her wall, remembering Catherine Stone's signature on that old loan document. Sometimes protection came from unexpected places. Sometimes strength meant standing your ground not with corporate weapons, but with flour-dusted hands and honest words. Her staff had already started prep lists for tomorrow's community bake sale. The hashtag #StandWithHale&Hearth was trending locally. In the darkness of her office, Marissa smiled, thinking of how her grandmother would have handled this, probably with a batch of cinnamon rolls and some choice words about corporate bullies. The city slept, but the ovens would be hot again in 5 hours. Whatever came next, she'd face it with the same things she'd always had. Good bread, true stories, and a community that knew the real value of both. Monday morning hit Hale and Hearth like any other. Ovens warming, coffee brewing, staff arriving in pre-dawn quiet. Marissa checked her phone for supplier confirmations, a habit as routine as breathing. No message from Marco about this week's specialty flour delivery. Again. She frowned, scrolling through 3 weeks of increasingly vague excuses. Supply chain issues, transport delays, weather problems. Each explanation seemed reasonable alone, but together they formed a pattern she couldn't ignore. At 9, she called Marco's direct line. Straight to voicemail. Something's off, she told Maddie, who was portioning butter for croissants. Marco's never gone dark like this, not in 5 years. Could be nothing, Maddie offered, but her expression matched Marissa's concern. The morning rush kept them busy until 11, when Marissa spotted Marco's truck outside, not making a delivery, but parked across the street. He was talking to someone she recognized. Her landlord's property manager? Ice settled in her stomach. She wiped her hands on her apron and headed out. Marco saw her coming, and his face fell. He quickly ended his conversation, but not before Marissa caught the guilty shuffle of papers between them. "We need to talk," she said, her voice carrying across the street. "Now." Inside her tiny office at noon, Marco couldn't meet her eyes. His weathered hands twisted his cap, a nervous tell she'd never seen before. "How much?" Marissa asked simply. 5,000, he mumbled, plus another 5 when the permits stalled. "Who paid you?" "I don't know, I swear." He finally looked up. "Some consultant. Said it was just business research, market analysis. I didn't ask questions." "You've known me since I opened," Marissa said, her voice tight. "You watched me build this place from nothing, and you sold us out for 10 grand. They said no one would get hurt." Marco's voice cracked. "Just delays, information. I didn't know about the permits until after—" "Get out." Marissa stood. "And don't bother with excuses about supply chains anymore. We're done." After we left, she sat at her desk, mind racing. The pop-up event was in 2 weeks. Without Marco's specialty flowers, she'd need to completely revise her menu or scramble for new suppliers. Both options meant extra costs she couldn't afford. Her phone buzzed, Gabe requesting an urgent meeting at 4. She almost ignored it, but his next message made her pause. "Found something. About Ethan. Need your eyes on this." Stone Global's executive floor felt colder than usual that afternoon. Gabe's office, usually impeccable, showed signs of chaos. Papers scattered across his desk, tie loosened, a half-empty coffee cup leaving rings on documents. "Look at these," he said without preamble, spreading out financial records. Ethan's been clever, but not clever enough. Small transfers, consulting fees to shell companies, all leading back to Damien's subsidiaries. Marissa studied the highlighted lines. "He's been feeding information." "More than that." Gabe's jaw tightened. "He's been orchestrating it. The leaked photo, the permit delays, probably your supplier issues too, creating a perfect storm to destabilize both our positions." "Marco confessed this morning," Marissa said. "Someone paid him to delay deliveries and report to my landlord." "Ethan." Gabe's hand clenched. "He's trying to force a crisis that makes me look incompetent, and you look complicit. The board would remove me, the development would stall, and Damien's hostile takeover would seem like a rescue. We need to expose this. Carefully." Gabe cautioned. "Ethan has friends on the board. One wrong move—" "No." Marissa stood firm. "No more careful corporate chess moves. People's livelihoods are at stake. We tell the truth, all of it, or we're no better than they are." Their eyes locked across the desk. For a moment, Marissa saw the weight of dynasty on his shoulders. Generations of stone family power and pride demanding preservation at any cost. Then something shifted in his expression. "You're right," he said quietly. "A press conference. Full disclosure about the manipulation, the fake photo, all of it. But we need to be strategic about timing and evidence." They spent the next hour planning. The conference would happen Wednesday morning. Enough time to gather proof, but not enough for Ethan to mount a defense. Gabe would present the financial trail. Marissa would speak about the community impact and supplier coercion. This could backfire, Gabe warned as evening settled over the city. Ethan might have contingencies we haven't discovered. Sometimes the only way forward is through. Marissa replied, thinking of her grandmother's letter, of old debts and new betrayals. At least we'll face it honestly. She gathered her things to leave, but paused at the door. Why did you really show me this? You could have handled Ethan internally, protected the Stone name." Gabe was silent for a long moment, looking out at the skyline. "Because some things matter more than names," he finally said. "Some debts can only be repaid with truth." She nodded, understanding the weight of history between them. Past loans, present choices, future consequences all tangled together like pastry layers. Tomorrow would bring preparation and risk. But tonight, watching the city lights blink on, they had chosen their path. Whatever came next, they would face it with clean hands and clear consciences. The evening crowds filled the streets below, hurrying home or seeking dinner. Somewhere in those streets, Ethan and Damien were likely planning their next moves. But up here, in the gathering dusk, two people had decided that truth might be the strongest weapon of all. Morning light filtered through the conference center's windows as camera crews adjusted their equipment. Marissa stood backstage, smoothing her navy blazer for the 10th time. The press conference would start in 15 minutes, and her stomach churned with each passing second. "You look fine," Gabe said quietly, appearing beside her. His usual pristine appearance showed subtle signs of strain, a slightly crooked tie, the barest shadow under his eyes. "This isn't about looking fine," she replied. "This is about—" "I know." He checked his watch. 10 minutes. Are you ready?" The conference room filled quickly. Local news stations positioned their cameras, while business reporters from major networks claimed front-row seats. Marissa recognized faces from food blogs and community papers mixed among the financial press. At exactly 10 Ms a.m., they walked onto the small stage. Camera shutters clicked rapidly. Gabe approached the podium first, his posture commanding despite the circumstances. "Good morning," he began, voice steady. "I've called this conference to address recent allegations and to announce a significant initiative." He paused, scanning the crowd. "But first, I need to acknowledge past errors, both corporate and personal." The room fell silent. Even the most jaded reporters leaned forward. "Years ago, my family's company made decisions that affected local businesses. Some of those decisions were legal, but perhaps not ethical. Some created hardships we never fully addressed." His eyes flickered to Marissa. "Today, we're changing course." He outlined the community covenant, a legally binding trust that would protect existing businesses during development, provide resources for permit navigation, and ensure fair lease terms. The amount he proposed made Marissa's breath catch. $5 million, pending board approval. When Marissa stepped up to speak, she focused on faces she knew. The local reporters who'd covered her bakery's opening. The bloggers who'd championed small businesses. "This isn't just about one bakery or one block," she said. "It's about recognizing that cities need both growth and roots. Development shouldn't mean displacement." The questions came rapid fire. "Mr. Stone, won't this impact shareholder value?" "Ms. Hale, are you concerned about appearing compromised?" "How can small businesses trust this isn't a PR move?" They fielded each query with careful honesty, neither promising perfection nor hiding the challenges ahead. By noon, they'd presented a united front that seemed to satisfy most of the press. But at 2:30 p.m., Olivia arrived at a rival network studio. Marissa watched the broadcast from her office, jaw clenched. "Gabriel's always had a flair for drama," Olivia said, perfectly coiffed and coolly amused. "But this? This is desperate. He's trying to save face after that development scandal, and he's using this baker as a shield." The interviewer pressed for details. Olivia smiled. "Let's just say I've seen this pattern before. Grand gestures, public promises, but when the cameras leave, ask his board how many promises he's kept." By 6:20 p.m., Gabe was trapped in an emergency board meeting. His texts grew increasingly terse. They're pushing back. Ethan's rallying votes against the covenant. Need more time. Marissa barely registered the tabloid headline someone sent her. Baker's dozen schemes, local shop owner cozies up to billions. The article painted her as a manipulative opportunist, twisting her grandmother's loan into evidence of long-term plotting. Her staff left at closing time, leaving her alone with paperwork and worry. The bell above the door chimed. She looked up, expecting a late customer, but no one was there. Just a white envelope on the floor, slipped under the door. Inside, a single line of typed text. Some buildings burn easily. Her hands shook as she called Gabe. I just got out. He answered, sounding exhausted. Ethan cornered me after the meeting. Said if I don't withdraw the covenant by Friday, he has enough proxy votes to force a leadership review. Someone threatened the bakery. Marissa said quietly. The silence on his end crackled with tension. What kind of threat? She read him the note. Pack a bag, he said immediately. I'm sending security. I'm not leaving my business. Marissa, no, running looks guilty, and I won't let them win by making me hide. Later that night, she sat at her kitchen window, watching the street below. Somewhere across town, she knew Gabe was probably pacing his penthouse, making calls, trying to save both his company and his promises. The threat note lay on her counter, innocent-looking white paper carrying poisonous intent. Her phone showed dozens of missed calls from reporters, her mother, even old school friends who'd seen the tabloid story. She thought about Marco's betrayal, Ethan's machinations, Olivia's smooth accusations. The simple dream of expanding her bakery had somehow exploded into a war of corporate politics and personal vendettas. Across the street, a car idled too long. Her heart rate spiked until it finally moved on. The security team Gabe insisted on sending watched from discreet positions, their presence both reassuring and a reminder of her new reality. Her phone lit up with a text from Gabe. Still awake? Yes, she replied. You? Trying to find a way through this that doesn't end in either corporate suicide or broken promises. She stared at his words, thinking of all the tangled threads. Family debts, business empires, community trust, personal honor. The path forward seemed impossible, yet standing still wasn't an option. What's our next move? She texted. 3 dots appeared as he typed. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally. That depends. Are we in this together? She looked at the threat note again, then at her bakery's dark windows across the street. Everything she'd built, everything she'd dreamed of building, hung in the balance. Her fingers moved across the screen. Together. But we do this right. Marissa hadn't slept. The threat note sat on her counter all night, its words burning into her thoughts. She'd opened the bakery at dawn, seeking comfort in the familiar rhythm of measuring, mixing, and baking. By 9:30 a.m., the morning rush had settled. She was wiping down counters when her phone buzzed with a text from Gabe. Need to see you. Important. She hesitated before responding. Bakery's open till 4. At 11:20 a.m., the bell chimed. Gabe walked in, looking as exhausted as she felt. His usual precise appearance showed subtle signs of strain, a slightly loosened tie, dark circles under his eyes. Back office, she told him, nodding to Maddie to watch the front. The staff room was small but private, with a desk and a worn leather couch. Marissa closed the door, acutely aware of their proximity in the confined space. I'm sorry, he said immediately. This mess, the threats, the tabloids, it's because of me, because I dragged you into my world. I walked in willingly, she reminded him. Signed the contract, knew the risks. Not these risks. He ran a hand through his hair. Not threats of arson, not character assassination. She stepped closer. I'm still standing. You shouldn't have to just stand. You should be thriving, growing your business, not dealing with corporate warfare and— She cut him off by touching his arm. The contact sparked between them, charged with weeks of tension and restraint. Marissa, he whispered, his voice rough. I need to know what you want. Clear consent. No contracts or obligations. I want you to kiss me, she said, but only if you see me as an equal, not someone to protect or possess. He studied her face. You're the strongest person I know. She reached up, sliding her hand behind his neck. Then trust my choices. Their first kiss was gentle, questioning. The second was not. Heat blazed between them as months of attraction ignited. His hands gripped her waist, lifting her onto the desk as she wrapped her legs around him. Wait, she gasped. Door locked. He checked it, then returned to her, his movements controlled despite his obvious desire. Tell me what you need. You, she said, but slowly, on my terms. He nodded, letting her set the pace as she unbuttoned his shirt. Their clothes came off piece by piece, each movement deliberate and consensual. When he finally entered her, it was with exquisite care that made her dig her nails into his shoulders. They moved together, finding a rhythm that built steadily. She guided his hands where she wanted them, unafraid to ask for what she needed. He responded to every cue, every gasp, until they both shattered in waves of pleasure. Afterward, they dressed slowly, trading soft kisses and lighter touches. For a moment, the outside world seemed distant and manageable. Then Gabe's phone buzzed. His face darkened as he read the message. What is it? She asked. Legal counsel. Damien's making his move. He checked his watch, 2:00 p.m. He's filed a motion to temporarily suspend my voting rights on certain transactions. Claims conflict of interest due to the community covenant. Can he do that? With enough board support? Yes. Gabe straightened his tie. I need to get to the office. Damage control. She touched his arm. Go, we'll figure this out. He kissed her once more, deeply. No regrets? None. She said firmly. Now go save your company. The afternoon crawled by in a haze of customers and baking. At 6:01 p.m., as she was preparing to close, her landlord walked in. Ms. Hale, he said, holding out an envelope. This is official notice. Property's been sold. New owners want vacant possession in 30 days. The paper trembled in her hands as she read. Everything, her dreams, her staff's jobs, her community presence, threatened to crumble in a single month. She called Gabe immediately. I just got the notice, she said when he answered. 30 days to vacate. His breath hissed through the line. This isn't coincidence. Damien's coordinating attacks on multiple fronts. What do we do? Fight. But Marissa... He paused. What happened between us this morning? It doesn't fix this. Might make it more complicated. I know. She looked around her beloved bakery, imagining it empty. But I don't regret it. Neither do I. But the board's meeting tomorrow morning. If they suspend my voting rights, I can't. Protect the covenant. Without that protection, the whole neighborhood could change. She finished. Not just my bakery. She heard voices in the background of his call, urgent and demanding. More fires to fight, more battles to wage. I have to go, he said reluctantly. Emergency strategy session. Go, she said again, but added, Gabe, whatever happens with the board, we face it together. After hanging up, she stood in her bakery's warm, familiar space. The threat note from last night still sat in her office. Now the eviction notice joined it, 2 pieces of paper representing the forces aligned against them. Their morning's intimacy felt both immediate and distant, like a dream interrupted by harsh reality. She touched her lips, remembering his kisses, the way he'd made her feel both desired and respected. But desire and respect couldn't stop corporate takeovers or property sales. Their private connection, however genuine, didn't solve the public crisis threatening both their worlds. She looked at the phone in her hand, wanting to call him back, to find comfort in his voice. Instead, she began making lists, legal options, temporary locations, staff meetings to plan. Outside, the sky darkened. Inside, she kept working, knowing tomorrow would bring either salvation or destruction for everything they were fighting to protect. Gabe stared at the documents spread across his desk, his jaw clenched tight enough to crack teeth. Dawn light filtered through his office windows, casting long shadows across damning evidence that had kept him awake all night. Email trails, bank transfers, meeting minutes with telling discrepancies, all of it pointing to Ethan's betrayal. His trusted advisor had been feeding information to Damien for months. The timeline was there in black and white, strategic leaks timed perfectly with Damien's moves against Stone Global. "Sir." His assistant knocked softly. "Legal team's ready with their preliminary review." He gathered the papers with careful precision, each movement measured despite the rage burning beneath his skin. The morning crawled by in a blur of confirmations and cross-references until he couldn't wait any longer. At noon, he called Marissa. "Can you meet? It's important." 20 minutes later, she sat across from him in his private office as he laid out the evidence. "Look at these dates," he said, pointing to a highlighted series of emails. Every major leak corresponded with internal meetings that only senior staff attended, meetings where Ethan was present. Marissa studied the documents, her baker's hands careful with the paper. "These memos, they're forgeries. Excellent ones, but our tech team found digital artifacts showing they were created after the dates they claimed to be from." He ran a hand through his hair. "Ethan had access to everything. Templates, letterhead, even my digital signature." And Damien promised him what? Money? Position? Power? Gabe's laugh was bitter. Senior VP role. Once he takes control. Ethan's been playing both sides, feeding Damien intel while pretending to help me fight him off. Marissa was quiet for a moment, then reached for her phone. "I need to show you something too." She pulled up a video Maddie had recorded secretly the day before, a meeting between their former supplier, Marco, and a well-dressed woman in dark glasses. "That's Catherine Wells," Gabe said sharply. "She's one of Damien's regular consultants." "Watch," Marissa said. In the video, money changed hands. The woman's voice was clear. "Mr. Ruiz appreciates your cooperation in this matter. The supply delays were very helpful." "Son of a bitch," Gabe breathed. "He orchestrated everything. The supplier problems, the permit delays. The threatening note under my door," Marissa added. "All of it coordinated to make us look bad and destabilize both our positions." They sat in heavy silence, processing the scope of the betrayal. Gabe's phone buzzed, legal counsel requesting an urgent meeting. "Come with me," he said impulsively. "We need to coordinate our response." The next hour was a flurry of strategy. Legal outlined their options while Marissa contributed her evidence. By 3 o'clock, they had the bones of a plan. "A controlled leak," the head lawyer suggested. "Feed Ethan specific information, see where it surfaces." "We need something big enough to bait them," Marissa said. "Something they can't resist using." Gabe nodded slowly. "The board meeting in 2 days. We leak that I'm planning to announce a complete restructuring, one that would strip Ethan's Department of Power. He'll run straight to Damien." Marissa agreed. "And they'll try to stop you before you can do it. Meanwhile, we document everything, every call, every meeting, every move they make to block it." The lawyer made rapid notes. We'll have them on record attempting to sabotage company operations. Gabe's assistant brought coffee as they hammered out details. Marissa noticed his hands were shaking slightly as he reached for his cup. "Hey," she said softly when they had a moment alone. "Are you okay?" I trusted him. Gabe's voice was raw. For years, I trusted him. He was at my father's funeral, for God's sake. She covered his hand with hers. I know. Finding out Marco was bought hurt too. These betrayals, they make you question everything. Not everything, he said, meeting her eyes. At least I know where you stand. Right here, she confirmed, fighting beside you. They worked through the afternoon, building their trap. Legal drafted careful documents. IT set up monitoring protocols. Security quietly began tracking Ethan's movements. The timing has to be perfect. Gabe stressed. We leak the restructuring plan tomorrow morning. That gives them just enough time to panic and react before the board meeting. But not enough time to cover their tracks properly, Marissa added. By evening, the plan was set. As the legal team filed out, Marissa lingered. What do we do until tomorrow? Wait, watch. Gabe loosened his tie. Try not to think about how many other betrayals might be hiding in plain sight. Stop, she said firmly. That path leads nowhere good. Focus on what we know, what we can prove. He smiled tiredly. When did you become the voice of reason? Somewhere between having my supplier sabotaged and finding out your board member is a corporate snake. She stood, gathering her things. Get some sleep, Gabe. Tomorrow we start fighting back. As she turned to leave, he called after her. Marissa, thank you for standing with me in this. She nodded, understanding all he wasn't saying about trust and loyalty and the rarity of finding either in their world. Later that night, alone in her apartment, she reviewed their plan again. The evidence was solid, the trap well designed, but betrayal left wounds that couldn't be healed by legal victories alone. She thought of Gabe's face when he'd explained Ethan's deception, the hurt beneath his anger. She thought of her own shock discovering Marco's betrayal. Trust, once broken, was hard to rebuild. But they had something their enemies didn't. Truth on their side, and each other to lean on. In 2 days, they'd spring their trap. For now, all they could do was prepare and wait. The stone global boardroom gleamed with morning light, all glass and chrome and power. Marissa watched from a discreet security feed as board members filed in, her heart racing. Gabe sat at the head of the table, impeccably controlled despite the storm about to break. Ethan arrived first, nodding to Gabe with practiced ease. The betrayal hidden behind his smile made Marissa's stomach turn. Damian Ruiz swaggered in last, taking a seat with predatory confidence. Shall we begin? Gabe's voice was steady through the feed. First item, quarterly projections. Marissa checked her phone. 9:15 a.m. The trap was set. She watched the mundane business discussion, noting how Ethan kept glancing at his phone, clearly expecting their leaked restructuring announcement. At 10:30 a.m. exactly, phones around the table began buzzing. Faces changed as the evidence dropped online. Emails detailing Damien and Ethan's conspiracy, bank records showing payments to Marco and others, the damning video confession. What is this? Damien demanded, but his face had gone pale. Gabe's voice cut like steel. Evidence of corporate espionage, market manipulation, and targeted harassment of small businesses, including documented proof that you orchestrated attacks on Hale and Hearth Bakery. These recordings were obtained illegally. Ethan sputtered, but his hands shook as he reached for his water glass. Every piece of evidence was collected through legal channels, Gabe's attorney stated firmly, and has been verified by independent sources. Damien recovered quickly, shark smile in place. Interesting performance, Stone, but ultimately futile. He nodded to his lawyer, who immediately began typing on his phone. Within minutes, news broke of an emergency injunction filed against Stone Global, claiming evidence tampering and illegal surveillance. The stock price began to waver. Marissa paced in the security office, watching the scene unfold. This had been expected. They'd planned for legal challenges. What they hadn't planned for was Olivia. At 2:45 p.m., the story hit every major outlet. Stone Global CEO accused of exploiting charity donors. The article quoted Olivia claiming Gabe had pressured wealthy donors into private arrangements in exchange for favorable business deals. It was completely false, but devastatingly effective. The stock price plummeted. News crews descended on Stone Global's headquarters. Social media exploded with outrage. By 4 p.m., protesters gathered outside Hale and Hearth, holding signs about corporate corruption and exploitation. Marissa's phone wouldn't stop ringing, suppliers cancelling orders, customers demanding refunds, reporters seeking comment. Ms. Hale. Her assistant looked pale. Golden Valley Flour just cancelled our standing order. They say they can't risk the association right now. Marissa sank into a chair. Without that supplier, the planned pop-up events would be impossible. Years of careful relationship building destroyed in hours. At 5:30 p.m., Stone Global's board called an emergency session. Gabe was asked to temporarily step back from public duties while an independent investigation proceeded. It was a necessary move to stabilize the company, but it felt like defeat. Marissa spent the evening fielding crisis calls, watching her social media followers drop, and trying to salvage what relationships she could. Her mother called twice, worried about the protesters still lingering outside. "We'll get through this," Marissa assured her staff as they closed early, escorting the last customers past the picket line. The truth will come out. But doubt gnawed at her. They'd planned for corporate warfare, not character assassination. Olivia's attack was brilliant in its simplicity, impossible to disprove quickly, guaranteed to cause maximum damage. Her phone buzzed at 9:45 p.m. Gabe's name lit up the screen. "I have to step back," he said without preamble, his voice rough with exhaustion. The investigation could take weeks. Any public connection between us right now would only make things worse. "I understand." And she did, even as her heart ached. The company has to come first. I never wanted... He stopped, frustrated. "This wasn't supposed to touch you. Your business, your reputation." "Hey," she said softly. "I knew the risks. We both did." Silence stretched between them, heavy with things unsaid. Finally, Gabe spoke again. "The legal team will handle everything. You shouldn't have any direct contact with me until this is resolved." "How long?" "As long as it takes to clear the company's name. Could be weeks, maybe months." Marissa closed her eyes, remembering their intimate moment just days ago. How quickly things could change. "Be careful," she said finally. "Damien and Olivia won't stop here. You too, document everything. Don't trust any new offers or contacts." Another pause. Marissa could hear papers shuffling in the background. He was probably still at the office, fighting to save his company. "Goodbye, Marissa." The line went dead. She stared at her phone, then at the darkened bakery windows where protest signs still cast shadows. Outside, a news van idled, waiting for tomorrow's story. She'd known from the start that entering Gabe's world meant risk, but knowing hadn't prepared her for this. The bitter taste of partial victory turned to ash, the weight of public judgment, the forced separation just when they'd started to truly trust each other. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, suppliers to replace, customers to reassure, a business to keep afloat while the legal battle raged. But tonight, she allowed herself one moment of pure grief for the partnership now forced into shadows, and for the man fighting his own battles across town, alone. 3 weeks of scandal had changed Hale and Hearth. The once bustling Sunday afternoon crowd had thinned to loyal regulars, and even they cast furtive glances at the occasional protesters outside. At 2:30 p.m., Marissa and Ellen worked in companionable silence, tying perfect bows on pastry boxes for their hastily organized community fundraiser. The familiar motions were soothing. Fold, crease, loop the ribbon just so. "That's 30 boxes done," Ellen said, straightening her back. "Are you sure about giving these away for free?" Marissa nodded, checking the neat stack of business cards tucked into each bow. "We need goodwill more than profit right now. Besides, these are our neighbors. They've stood by us." The bakery's windows caught the afternoon sun, highlighting the Community Support Day banner they'd hung that morning. 3 weeks ago, such an event would have drawn Instagram influencers and food bloggers. Today, it was about survival. "The eviction notice," Ellen began carefully, "is being challenged by our lawyer." Marissa's hands didn't pause in their work. "We have rights as tenants. They can't just throw us out because of bad press." But they both knew it wasn't that simple. The latest notice cited building code violations that hadn't existed before the scandal. The permit delays had multiplied. Even their insurance company was making noise about risk reassessment. "I saw Gabe on the news yesterday," Ellen said softly. "He looked tired." Marissa's fingers fumbled the ribbon. She'd seen it too. Gabe emerging from another board meeting, reporters shouting questions about the investigation. He'd lost weight, and his usual sharp suits seemed to hang differently on his frame. "The investigation will clear him," Marissa said, more firmly than she felt. "Damien's lies can't hold up forever." Ellen touched her daughter's shoulder. "And what about you? Are you holding up?" Marissa managed a small smile. "I'm fine. Just tired of fighting shadows. Every time we debunk one accusation, they spin 3 more." The kitchen timer chimed, another batch of cookies ready. The familiar scent of butter and vanilla filled the air as Marissa pulled them from the oven. This, at least, was unchanged. Dough still rose, sugar still caramelized. Customers still sighed with pleasure at the first bite. "Remember what Dad used to say?" Ellen asked, carefully transferring cookies to cooling racks. "About tough times? The dough only rises if you give it time." Marissa quoted. It was one of her father's favorite baking metaphors. Patience and persistence would see you through. At 5 p.m., Marissa's phone buzzed. Gabe's name appeared on the screen for the first time in weeks. The message was brief but clear. "Meet me at the bakery, 7:30 tonight. Just us. No PR, no lawyers, please." Her heart skipped. They'd maintained strict separation during the investigation, communicating only through attorneys. Whatever had prompted this request must be significant. The community event wound down as sunset approached. Local families had shown up in force, taking selfies with their free pastries and leaving encouraging notes on the community board. It wasn't much, but it felt like a small victory. At 7:25 p.m., Marissa sent her mother home and waited. The streets were quiet now, the protesters gone for the day. She'd left one light on in the kitchen, its warm glow spilling onto the empty sidewalk. Gabe arrived exactly on time, letting himself in with quiet precision. He looked both better and worse than his TV appearances, more exhausted but somehow more alive, more present. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, remaining near the door as if unsure of his welcome. "What's wrong?" Marissa asked, noting the intensity in his expression. "I'm giving up the River District parcel." The words hung in the air. The contested development rights to that property were worth millions, perhaps billions in potential revenue. The board will fight you, Marissa said carefully. Let them. Gabe moved closer, his voice low and certain. I'm done playing their game. Tomorrow morning, I'm signing legal documents renouncing Stone Global's claim to the property. Then I'm going public with everything. The corruption, Damien's manipulation, all of it. They'll try to stop you. The injunction is being handled. My legal team has spent 3 weeks building an ironclad case. Every document authenticated, every witness deposition recorded and notarized. Marissa studied him, seeing past the exhaustion to the determination beneath. You could lose control of the company. I know. His smile was faint but real. Turns out some things matter more than control. Like what? Like doing what's right. Like protecting this community instead of exploiting it. He paused, meeting her eyes. Like being worthy of trust. The moment stretched between them, heavy with possibility. Marissa broke it first, her practical nature asserting itself. Show me the legal strategy, she said. If I'm going to stand with you tomorrow, I need to know we're not walking into another trap. Gabe pulled out his phone, bringing up documents. The announcement is scheduled for 9 a.m. By 9:05, these papers will be filed with the court and the Property Commission. No taking it back, no legal wiggle room. They bent over the phone together, reviewing points and contingencies. Outside, a car passed, its headlights briefly illuminating their faces. The CEO and the baker, planning one last stand against corruption. The strategy was sound, the documents comprehensive. Tomorrow would change everything, for better or worse. But tonight, in the quiet bakery, they were simply two people choosing principle over profit, truth over power. The morning sun filtered through Hale and Hearth's windows, catching dust motes and the steam from fresh coffee. At precisely 10 a.m., cameras switched on for the live stream, as Gabriel Stone stood beside Marissa, his presence filling the modest space of her bakery. No podium, no corporate backdrop, just worn wooden tables and the comforting scent of fresh bread. Local reporters sat shoulder to shoulder with regular customers, while an iPad propped on the counter broadcast everything in real time. 3 weeks ago, Gabe began, his voice steady. Someone tried to convince you that profit matters more than people. Today, we're proving them wrong. He gestured to the stack of documents before him. These papers detail a systematic attempt to manipulate markets and destroy small businesses. The evidence is conclusive and has been verified by independent counsel. Marissa watched as he methodically laid out the case. Forged memos, recorded confessions, bank transfers that traced directly to Damien Ruiz. The audience murmured as each revelation landed. But exposing corruption isn't enough. Gabe continued. Actions matter more than words. He lifted a legal document bearing official seals. This instrument, which I'm signing now, permanently transfers development rights for the River District to a community trust. This trust will provide grants and low-interest loans to small businesses, ensuring our neighborhood's character remains intact. His pen moved across the paper with deliberate strokes. The moment it left the page, his assistant transmitted digital copies to the courts and Property Commission. Phones began buzzing throughout the room as news alerts went live. Damien's carefully constructed legal house of cards was collapsing in real time. Furthermore, Gabe added, evidence has emerged proving that recent accusations against both myself and Ms. Hale were fabricated. He nodded to his legal team, who released a comprehensive dossier debunking Olivia's claims. The questions came rapid fire. Gabe fielded them with new transparency, while Marissa addressed concerns about small business protection. Their answers complemented each other, his corporate expertise, her community insight. By noon, Ethan was being escorted from Stone Global's offices by security. His computer had been seized, his access revoked. The board issued an emergency statement distancing themselves from his actions. At 2:00 p.m., Marissa's phone rang. Her landlord, suddenly courteous, explained that a generous settlement offer had arrived along with the trust documentation. The eviction notices would be withdrawn immediately. Within the hour, her permit applications received priority processing stamps. The afternoon blurred into a parade of handshakes and interviews. Local business owners stopped by with tears and hugs. Someone brought champagne. The bakery's social media exploded with support. As evening approached, Gabe pulled Marissa aside. "How are you holding up?" "Still processing," she admitted. "It feels surreal." "The hard work starts tomorrow," he said. "Restructuring the company, implementing the trust, rebuilding trust. At least we'll be rebuilding something worth keeping." 2 months later, on a quiet Wednesday morning, Marissa stood in her expanded kitchen, admiring the gleaming new commercial oven. The production space hummed with activity as staff prepared for both the main shop and the popular pop-up location at Stone's boutique hotel. The Community Trust's first round of grants had transformed the neighborhood. New awnings brightened storefronts, updated equipment improved efficiency, and a shared delivery service connected local vendors. As a named partner in the trust, Marissa spent Tuesday afternoons reviewing applications with other small business owners. Gabe had kept his CEO position but transformed the corporate culture. Board meetings now included community representatives. Profit projections balanced social impact metrics. The press had dubbed it conscious capitalism, but to Marissa, it was simply doing business with a conscience. At 9:00 p.m., after the last customer left and the floors were mopped, Marissa heard the back door open. Gabe stepped in, looking relaxed in a casual shirt with rolled sleeves. "Thought I'd find you still here," he said, setting down his jacket. "Just finishing the books." She gestured to her laptop. "The pop-up's numbers are strong." He moved behind her, reading over her shoulder. "Impressive margin on the new line. Turns out people will pay extra for quality and ethics. Who knew?" His laugh was soft against her hair. "Speaking of ethics, no press, no business talk. Just us. Is that possible?" She turned to face him. The great Gabriel Stone, leaving work at work. "I'm learning." He took her hands in his. "Some things matter more than spreadsheets." "Like what?" "Like building something real. Together." His thumbs traced circles on her palms. "Not as CEO and baker, or trust partners, but as us." Marissa studied him. The man who'd risked an empire for principle, who'd learned to share power instead of wielding it. "Together sounds good," she said softly. The bakery was quiet around them, filled with the settling sounds of cooling ovens and the faint hum of refrigerators. Through the windows, streetlights cast warm pools on empty sidewalks. No cameras, no contracts, no pressure. Just a man and a woman who'd found each other across battle lines, who'd chosen truth over convenience, partnership over power. They stood in the heart of what they'd built together, a business preserved, a community protected, a love earned through action rather than words. "Stay for coffee?" Marissa asked. "Always," Gabe replied, already reaching for cups. "Thank you for listening. Stories connect us in the most unexpected ways. If you felt that spark today, make sure you're subscribed. I share a new one daily, and the next might change your day."